Okay, we're now here on our Asian news and analysis segment. And of course, the biggest event the past day has been the attempted coup d'etat in Turkey. And we received an email, or we received on our Facebook account this post from Ms. Cerudo, who is based, I think, in Thailand, a Filipina based in Thailand, and says, let us pray about this coup d'etat in Turkey. And I answered back and said, you don't need to pray, you need to analyze. Why is this happening in Turkey now? And I say this is something that we must think about here in the Philippines because it may happen in the months ahead. Why? In Turkey, one of the most probable reasons at this time, of course, things are still clearing up. But immediately, the analysis of many people, including myself, is that we see the Erdogan government moving towards dialogue with Russia. Even after shooting down a Russian plane 2-3 months ago, it has been forced to turn around in its policy because of economic interests. Russia is one of the biggest sources of revenues for the Turkish economy, Turkish tourism, and so on. So Turkey is also reconsidering its position vis-a-vis Syria and the regime change against President Assad of Syria. So these are the immediate precedents, and that is why it is the conclusion of many, including myself, and I'm going to ask our guest Ado Paglinawan what he thinks, that these are the precedents to this coup, and this is a coup attempt to remove a government that is beginning to wean itself away from U.S. influence or control, and the United States is using the Turkish military. Of course, all these signs are that Erdogan is also weaning away from NATO, the military alliance sponsored by the Americans, imposed by the Americans on the European Union. Now, why do I say that this may happen in the Philippines? As we know, the United States simply does not want the relations of the Philippines and China to warm and become constructive through constructive dialogue. There have been many attempts to stop that, and one of these is the arbitration decision. And we will have more of that in our China-Philippines or Philippines-China focus later on with our book author and analyst and broadcaster Ado Paglinawan. But in the Philippines, what is happening with the new Duterte government, it is engaging China with, in talks. It is opening bilateral dialogue despite all the attempts to block this effort. We have now some of the segments that we identify with those against dialogue, calling the Department of Foreign Affairs Secretary appointed by Duterte as traidor, or traitor and treasonous for proposing to start dialogues with China. So what else can we think? And of course, we know that traditionally the Philippine military has very close relations also with the Americans, and this is now the concern. So Mr. Ado Paglinawan, who has just recently written a book, A Problem for Every Solution, we hope this problem of a coup d'etat in the Philippines will not come about because the Duterte administration is trying to find a solution to this pernicious campaign to create a rift between China and the Philippines. Ado?
Let me frame it this way. Actually, Associate Justice Antonio Carpio, I read yesterday, did the Filipino people a big injustice by saying that this islands, all right, or this exclusive economic zone that has been decided by a tribunal in favor of the Philippines that the president, or our country for that matter, cannot share this with China. Because according to him, or according to the media organization that quoted him, because nowadays there is a propaganda war going on. There's an information war going on. And we don't anymore know sometimes who's telling the truth. Now, how can this be unconstitutional when the Malampaya of Palawan is there and it's not even in our extended economic zone, it's in our very own territory within the 12-mile limit. And we never heard of this Associate Justice saying that that was unconstitutional. And this is with the Anglo-Dutch-American shell interests. So what's going on here? Has our Associate Justice of the Supreme Court ended up to be a talking head for the parties that are against China? I'm just asking a question. Now, why do I say that there is a, not a shooting war yet, as you might be implying in terms of a coup d'etat or an armed struggle?
In the Philippines,
in the Philippines. But we might as well be going towards that direction. I don't agree with some of the conspirators or conspiratory theorists around the Kapihans. But they're saying that since President Duterte has moved towards bilateral talks, and since the Department of Foreign Affairs is kind of smoothing it out with China, and since the President during his campaign said he will reevaluate EDCA, the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agency.
Agreement.
Some are saying that this might force the Americans to move our military against our president. To me, that is a very irresponsible analysis. Too shallow. Because what President Digong Duterte here is precisely doing is undoing a monumental swindle, a big jip that has happened by engaging this permanent court of arbitration into what I call is a special relation, a public relations job here. And why do I say so? Because how can there be an arbitration when there is only one party?
Well, we'll have our third segment on that.
Okay.
20 minutes of analysis of this arbitration result and what it really means. Of course, this is becoming an emotional issue for some people, and it's being used to stoke some anti-Duterte sentiment. For example, there is call for an impeachment, and Justice Carpio himself has said anybody who talks to China, according to the reports again in the newspapers, anybody who talks to China is treasonous.
Well, actually, when he said that a long time ago, that was a bit of a rhetoric abuse, but nevertheless a rhetoric. I don't think the Associate Justice, even if I'm criticizing it right now, would be too irresponsible to go to that extent.
Okay.
But what is so treasonous about that?
Yeah.
You may ask that question too.
Okay. The next and only second item, we're not, unlike in the past, we would have 3 or 4 items, because these are issues that we have to exhaustively analyze. This next news item is about, this is the headline, U.S. Navy's top admiral to visit China, discuss South China Sea with the Chinese counterpart. The U.S. Navy's top admiral is making a 3-day visit to China, and this report is only July 15. Visit to China, and meeting with his Chinese counterpart at a time when Beijing has rejected an international tribunal's ruling that invalidated its expansive claims in the South China Sea. Admiral John Richardson, Chief of Naval Operations, will meet the commander of the People's Liberation Army's Navy, Admiral Wu Xiangli, during his trip to the Chinese capital of Beijing and the port city of Qingdao this Sunday, today by our time. Richardson is scheduled to visit the Chinese Navy's headquarters in Beijing and meet with other senior defense officials. He will visit the Navy's Submarine Academy and tour the aircraft carrier Liaoning when he visits. So while there are fires being stoked here,
Yeah.
and passions being generated here against China, the U.S. is talking to China.
Yeah.
What does this make of this campaign here in our home land?
Yeah. Well, I thought you missed something there.
Yes, go ahead.
They're meeting in a city called Qingdao.
Yeah, where there's
And
beer.
where there's beer. Where the Germans who went to China left beer. And maybe they're going to have a toast. You see, these visits have been long scheduled. And it follows really a protocol of friendly relations between the United States and China. And so this might as well send a signal to those rara boys of the United States here, who, by the way, sent some Filipino Americans to back up Roy Goles where they were wearing red T-shirts and with a big star and coming out in the front pages of at least 3 big newspapers. They were backed up by Vietnamese nationals. So this is highly suspicious. They're stoking the sentiments of the people, an anti-China sentiment here, which is pointless.
Yes,
I mean, the people of China and the people of the Philippines and the people of the United States are not party to this conundrum, you know, to this political situation, international political situation that we have now. And so that's as much as I could say, and that should assure everyone that the militaries of the two countries are indeed talking, because given these very tenuous circumstances, it is very, very possible that any military equipment of each country might get into an accident, and it might result in a bigger conflagration, which nobody wants. Not the United States, not China, and definitely not the Philippines.
Well, it is very clear that you can see it on the internet with so many troll sites, and even in our mainstream newspapers like Inquirer, where you have threatening pictures of American aircraft carriers sailing around the region, and saying that they're on Facebook, a lot of these anti-China elements saying that they are here to aid the Philippines and help impose the ruling against China. I think this news item shows that is a lot of baloney.
Yeah, and there's even one thing I saw here earlier.
Okay, which one?
Which there was a statement here that was really made me smile a little bit. Oh, here it is. There's this picture that says, U.S. to China, we will protect Philippines. From whom?
Yes.
I mean, from whom will they protect the Philippines? From the Chinese or from the Americans themselves? So I'm just asking these questions. Chas Freeman, I met him in Washington, D.C. during my assignment there as a diplomat.
We have a quote from him. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Joshua, can you flash that?
He's a former diplomat, and he was the interpreter in the historic trip to China of President Nixon in 1972. He said that this is a tactical victory for the Philippines, and I agree with him, at least on paper, but a strategic defeat for international law. A lot of people do not know that international law is different from the law that you live with on a day-to-day basis, that has a prosecution that would convict an individual and a defense that would prevent him from being convicted, which is in sort of justice. In international law, the purpose is not really to seek conviction or retribution, but peace. International law is for peace. And therefore, in the conduct of international law, the agreement among conflicting parties is very important.
Yeah.
They might enter into something, but if the result is not acceptable to any one of them can exercise his option not to accept it.
Yeah. Well, we'll continue with that in our third segment on the Philippine-China focus, which will deal with this arbitration question. Okay, let's take this break.